Hello, we're live. Welcome to Dive into World Building, and this week's topic is strength and weakness, which is actually very apropos since poor Morgan spent her weekend carting large boxes full of stuff between one apartment and another, each on the second floor in her daughter's apartment complex. And that required a lot of strength. No, sorry, Morgan, I'm taking advantage of you.
That's fine, because we can talk about the different kinds of strength that takes.
Absolutely. So that's what I think we're talking about today is different kinds of strength and weakness, and how we portray them and how we represent them, and all this kind of stuff. Actually, the first thing I thought of when I wanted to talk about strength and weakness is that yesterday we went to see Moana. Have you guys seen Moana?
No.
Okay, well, I don't imagine this is an enormous spoiler. So you may know that one of the characters in the story is Maui, who is a demigod who has all these really, really cool powers, and he's like huge and buffed and has all these tattoos, and he's very, very cool. He's awesome, right? Super strong, right? He can pick Moana up in the palm of his hand. But part of the point about him in the story, which I actually really thought was important, was that they complicated his character, and that his strength is actually compensatory. And I won't go into the reasons why, but I thought it was really interesting because he maintains and shows off his strength in order to cover for his weaknesses, which are more subtle, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of people do, because we all have things we're good at and things we're less good at. And when we don't, when we think that we're not good enough, we may try to make ourselves look good by other means.
I think a lot of times people are told to focus on their strengths. In school, like, well, I'm not good at this, and I feel bad about not being good at this. Say, well, you are good at this other thing, so focus on that. Yeah. And then you don't have to think about whether or not it's important to you or to anyone else in any way for you to get better at the thing that you're not good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, so this is a complicated topic, right? I hesitate only because there's so many different directions we could go, and I don't want to leave behind something important by going off on a tangent. But the first thing that I think about is toxic masculinity.
Yes.
And toxic masculinity tends to put a great deal of emphasis on the importance of physical strength.
And I think what I was thinking of last week when we came up with doing this topic was men who tough out whatever they're feeling unwell with. If they have a cold, or pneumonia, they tough it out until it is urgent, until
it's severe.
until it is severe, and the doctor looks at them and says,
why didn't
you come in? Or some of them, depending on what it is, some guys will just wait until their spouse or whoever has to call an ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And say, suddenly say, oh, well, yeah, I guess I've been having, pains of whatever for a couple of months now. And you're going, do you not know what that's symptomatic of? Now you're in ICU, and so is it stronger to do that, or is, versus the, well, I have the sniffles, so I'm not going to work today. It's like, is that
And I think that then, in fact, that is a similar toxic masculinity thing, right? Because toxic masculinity is the thing that says, well, always act strong, always be confident, and always think, always know the right thing, because that's the way you have to be. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, athletes are considered to be so incredibly strong because they can play through pain, right? Pain is there for a reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a way that your body communicates with you about
and
matters.
some of them, I think it is important though, because some of the things that I've noticed is like some of the things that you should do are counterintuitive. Sometimes like with arthritis, some things the doctor will say, keep moving.
Yeah.
Even though it hurts, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
Mm.
And some of it, like I like to lift weights. I'm not gonna say I'm good at it. I just enjoy exercise. And I enjoy weightlifting because it makes me feel stronger, even though I'm not. But,
no, I get it.
But
I get it.
But I like that, and it's like, yeah, you end up sore and in pain, but it's like you have to learn to distinguish: is it just my muscles that are sore? Is it a tendon?
Yeah.
And you sort of start figuring that out. And that's what's important to know.
Yeah.
Because you can play through pain and recover.
Yeah.
But you can also play through pain and end your football career.
Yeah. Being able to identify what kind of pain it is. But sometimes, the going back to the being sick and saying I'm staying home, I have the sniffles, is being able to identify, this isn't, allergies, this is a cold, and I can play through it and go to work and wait until everybody knows I'm really sick, or I can take this day, I can rest, I can take care of myself, do the fluids, do the best I can to prevent it from getting worse, and that is the right thing to do for myself and for my coworkers.
Yeah.
Who, don't need to be toughing it out until everybody knows.
I think that whole idea that you should tough it out and go to work even when you're sick is a real problem in American society. Because it makes everyone sicker.
I think maybe part of the problem in thinking that it's weakness to do that is that it's easier. There's that, what Jay just said about employers saying you're just excusing not going to work, and that's another thing. But sometimes the easiest way to rest, if you are fortunate enough to have a partner or a family member or somebody who lives with you, is easy to say, stay in bed, sit quietly. I will make the tea. I will make the soup. I will see to the things that you're having trouble resting because you keep thinking they need to be done. So
yeah,
that's a sign of weakness to need someone to take care of you,
right?
Except it isn't really. And then the whole going to work thing is a whole nother. If you're making excuses not to go to work, what does that say about your job?
Yeah, that's a topic for another
and
day.
How suited you are to each other. That's another thing. But
so I'm actually gonna sort of switch around with this whole question of toughing things out, because I think we've focused a lot on men, but women tough things out, and they tough it out in a really different way. And in fact, their toughing it out does not get noticed, right?
No, because they're just expected to do crap.
Yeah. So you're expected to keep the household running even when you're ill. You're home, you're not in a workplace, but at the same time, you're having to keep functioning despite illness
Mhm.
when you're at home. And in fact, that sort of requirement, that the idea that you can't be a whiner,
Mhm.
because being a whiner would mean that you were not doing your job properly. I'm not sure if it would be called weakness precisely. Also kills people in the same way that, wow, I hurt, but I'm not going to do anything about it, also kills people.
Yeah.
Right. So, you can be at home and saying, well, I hurt a lot, but I still got to get my stuff done. Right. And not get yourself into the doctor. And then end up, being in an ambulance or whatever it is. Right. So,
Oh, yeah.
so I guess the sort of both men and women in traditional roles will ignore pain and push through for different reasons, but it's not labeled the same way, and it's not recognized the same way, which I think is interesting. So
there's the gender connection. Men, I think, are likely to, trying to think this through and talk at the same time doesn't always work. But I think, men are going to say, well, you're weak to each other because you're not putting up with this.
Mm-hmm.
Some women will say, you're weak because you're not putting up with this. And a lot of women will say, well, guys whine about being sick when there's nothing really wrong with them. And, I'm 1,000 times sicker than that, and I'm still expected to push through it.
Right.
So that doesn't help. Even if, there are, and I can't cite them, so I probably shouldn't, but I believe that there are studies that have said certain types of pain women just handle better than men.
Mm.
Yeah,
I have heard that also, but I don't know the studies, so I'm gonna. Anybody watching this go and do some research before they expound on it in a public forum.
So so I'm not gonna count that as really.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard things about like men have a lower threshold of pain than women, which could.
But just the way gender's on a spectrum, all of that's going to be on a spectrum as well.
And pain is a really hard thing to quantify.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at someone who's has chronic pain,
mm-hmm.
and you say, okay, here's a scale 1 to 10. How do you feel every day? What is the worst pain? What is the least pain? And I can see this going through my kid's head, because my kid has fibromyalgia, and we'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will say this whole thing about scale of 1 to 10, and I can see what's going through my kid's head is it's 2 or 3, and I, having talked to them, I know, if you tell the doctor that's a 2 or a 3 because that's the lower end of your pain experience, they will think it's not. Until they get used to this person has fibro and that's what it means, they won't understand that on this, what people seem to think is a consensus scale, that's actually a 5 or a 6. And it's different.
Just your scale is different because you're having to tolerate it on a daily basis.
Yeah. And now what my kid has said is, I can't be sure of the numbers that we're talking about, not just because of that, but at some point I start to process it as exhaustion and not pain exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, and then in some conditions, fibro pain is not doing what it's supposed to do. So you can be in pain and know that it's a false alarm. There really isn't anything wrong. Or there was, and it's done now. That was 3 days ago. Stop telling me. but it,
Yeah, I hear
it
you.
doesn't. And sometimes it just says, oh, there's something horribly wrong. And you're just, no, everything's moving as it does. Stop. Just so pain is a difficult thing to quantify and to say this is how another person should feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to affect views of strength.
So I want to move away from the idea of physical strength for a minute. Let's go through Che's little thing she's put up in the chat here, which is strong equals stupid, weakness equals intelligence. I think it's interesting that there is this expectation that you can't, or you're not, maybe not allowed. Are you allowed to have more than one strength at a time? You know what I'm saying? If your body is strong, does it necessarily mean your mind is not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think let me just say that in some families, for a second, in some families, notably my husband's family when he was growing up, you were not allowed to have more than one strength. Each of the kids had their thing they were good at, and they were like literally suppressed from being good at anything else. Contrast that with my family, where everybody was expected to be good at everything. Right? You know, and we were just supposed to do all the things. Now, nobody expected me to be a soccer prodigy or a piano prodigy or an art prodigy. You know, like there was no expectation of prodigy status anywhere. But at the same time, and in fact, you know, if you look at literature, you've got these heroes who are simultaneously quite smart and very, very physically robust, right? But I think that nerd versus jock thing is all about, like, I have to wear the crown in something.
Yeah.
Right? If I can't be better than everybody else at this, I will have to be better than everybody else at that. I don't know. But you definitely, I mean, like all of the Revenge of the Nerds movies, like there are whole enormous stories and paradigms built up around the idea that, well, you know, the way that you get around somebody huge and strong is to fool them.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, it's kind of your only option, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're not smart. You just have to kind of, I mean, even smart people can get faked out sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I just think it's one of those things that's very entrenched. It shows up in literature and TV shows almost without second thought.
Yeah, it's never questioned.
Yeah, and then, you know, and then you have like the things that are, woo, it's an exception. Like I want to say Beast from X-Men. You know, is like giant, super strong.
Yeah, look, he's both. Yeah.
you know, where it's like, woo, you know, and I think there's certain expectations in certain communities. Like if you look at like science fiction and stuff, you know, I you know, like I feel like I would sort of be the exception at say a sci-fi con, in that I go to the gym and I lift weights because I like it. Like you know, you find, like, the book people who are like, oh, the book people, you know, are not necessarily out there doing and that's not even true.
Well, and you know what? Here's the thing.
So
the more you look around, the more you find science fiction people who lift weights or climb walls or do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody does, but it's but they're out there. Like Kitch Johnson was one of the first people that I knew who was a really serious rock climber. You know,
And I've never climbed a damn thing.
But here's the thing: we go to a convention, and the convention is not about rock climbing or weightlifting or cooking or
right?
whatever. It's about the books and the movies that we share an interest in.
Yeah.
If we want to be with people who share an interest in weightlifting or cooking or rock climbing, we go to a different social space.
Yeah.
And we're surprised when those social spaces intersect.
Right.
Yeah.
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 I mean, they're not.
Yeah, because like if you went to the gym and you met like some other author there, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't know you went to the gym.
Yeah. It's it reminds me of little kids, kindergartners, for example, when you live in the same town as your teachers, right? And the first time you meet your teacher in the grocery store, there's a serious disconnect.
Because they're out of context.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, my mom was a teacher, and we would run into her students. And they would look at her like she was an exotic animal. Like walking through the mall, and then like very shyly say, "Hi, Miss Gilsey,"
But even as adults, I will look and I can say, I know that person. Where do I know that person from?
Yeah, I ran into somebody like that yesterday. I was like, "Hi, I have no idea what your name is or where I know you from, but hi."
Because context.
Yeah.
So is strength contextual?
Oh, I would say.
So it
would have to be in at least, I mean, because there's going to be sort of like a base level physical strength, like sort of that everybody has because we live on Earth and we have gravity and we have muscles, and this is
gravity.
Like, there's like this basic level of strength you need in order to get up off the ground.
Yeah, but they use that in what is that? Mars, John Carter of Mars.
Yes, where
he was supposedly like super strong on Mars.
Yeah. And he could like do like these incredible Superman leaps and stuff, and it was just because it was like 1/3 the gravity. And he's like, and he had to like kind of learn to control it because he didn't know what he was doing either or where he was. That movie gets such a bad rap. I swear.
It was fun. I watched it on the plane and I was like, this is fun.
Yeah.
It was a cool movie.
Yeah, so so there's sort of like this base level that like, and obviously some people can't meet that because of physical, usually some kind of illness, a disability, a birth defect, whatever. So there are like exceptions to that, but there's sort of like in order to move around on planet Earth, you have to be strong enough to move around. And then you can improve on that, or you don't really have to. That's optional.
Yeah.
And then there's like, do you work on your brain, or are you just dumb from the get-go? So there's all these things that like pile on. And in society, is it going to be more valuable for you to like go to college than it is to be good at sports? What does your family say? What does your culture say? Okay,
so I have a really cool strength is contextual is a really important thing, and I have a really cool thing I want to show you, and I want to see if I can screen share it. No, can I?
Wait, maybe.
But the problem is it's only showing me the top of the page.
Okay,
Have you seen this project? Have you seen it? Let me.
I think I have, because it was like it was the different body types, wasn't it?
So here, let me see if I can re-screen share to you for a second. bodybuilding, weightlifting. These are bodybuilders and weightlifters
Mhm.
in this particular shot.
Mhm.
And then I will get this. This is a
That looks like different kind of ball players.
yeah, this one is soccer, wrestling, basketball, and wrestling. So I highly recommend this particular photo project because what it does is it really shows the very different kinds of body types that athletes have.
Mhm.
These are all people who have established in the Olympic arena that they are strong.
Mhm.
And they're incredibly different from each other.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, it's because you're training.
Your training
different
is
things.
so different. Oh gosh, here
Yeah.
I love this one. I gotta show
This
you
is where
this
you'll-
one.
You'll have tall people. Someone will look at someone who's tall and kind of muscular and say, "Why do you not play basketball?" Well, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
maybe they don't
So
want
look
to.
at this. Look at this group: adventure racing, long distance running, sprint and long jump, long distance running, and heptathlon.
Wow. Yeah.
Like really, really different bodies. And so when I do my report, and I'm behind on my reports, and I apologize for that. But when I do my report for this one, I'm going to make sure to share this link because I think it's something that everybody should see. And this is actually featured right on this particular link is a Bored Panda link. But it's still useful. Because it's anyway, I just think this is such an important project, and it was done by Howard Schatz, photographer. And I think, in fact, it's useful not only for just talking about strength and weakness, but also breaking expectations for strong bodies and a lot of different stuff of that variety. So lots of different types of physical strength. At this point, I want to say, let's figure out what non-physical strength is about. And I want to look in particular at the quote unquote strong female character.
Well, here's the thing that does not show in the same way. You can look at somebody's body and make a judgment whether or not they're moving.
Yeah.
You just look at the body and say, make a decision about whether or not they're physically strong. You might be wrong, but it's something you can look at and get some feeling that
Right.
Mental strength, emotional strength, those don't show without action.
Yep.
So you can look at somebody and say, well, you don't look physically strong, so you aren't, because I'm not seeing you do anything that would say otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And also, people can do things that are very, very strong but invisible.
Yeah.
Or ignored, right?
Yeah.
So strong female character problem is I think related to this, and I want to go into it a little bit because I think it's really important. What we've been seeing lately is a lot of strong female characters who are just sort of kick-ass.
Yeah.
Lara Croft. And actually, the sadder one is when you get these kick-ass characters who are nonetheless secondary and don't actually run any part of the plot on their own. They're not getting any strength in terms of directing the story, but they just have all these badass skills that they use to be sort of sidekicks to often a weaker male, like the Lego movie.
Oh God, I hated that movie so much. I was actually going to mention that. That just inflamed like just this absolute rage, and everybody talked about how good the Lego movie is. I wanted to punch that movie in the face. It was horrible. It was such a piece of crap. I was just angry. Like I was just angry that whole movie.
Well,
Like,
it was funny. There were many aspects of it that I enjoyed, but there were some real premise problems that I had with it. And sounds to me like you had some serious premise problems with it. And do you know what I mean by premise problem? Like, when you refuse to accept a piece of foundation, so that you can't really appreciate what's built on it.
yeah, and it was honestly, it was multiple levels. For me, it was the fact that the human characters were father and son, which was so obvious.
Yeah, oh
because,
yeah.
of course, girls don't play with Legos, right? You know, and it just like that movie was just, oh my God, oh fuck you, movie. I hate you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That was
it was just like it was everything. It was everything. It was like, yeah, that one, like the one girl Lego who actually accomplished things, who was
and was nonetheless secondary and only a romantic interest for anyway. So moving on from that,
basically like Batman's property. Also,
let's just say that this is something that people have been messing up, right? Hermione Granger is better. She directs the plot, at least. She doesn't get to be the main character, but she does direct the plot quite a bit, which is nice because honestly, she deserves to.
Oh yeah.
And we have a problem. Like Hermione doesn't have to be physically strong either. She is a mentally intelligent. So it's nice. She sort of bucks the trend of Trinity from the Matrix. And I think I've heard it called the Trinity problem. So yeah, you can actually Google the Trinity problem. So Hermione is better, right? She's intelligent, works stuff out. She hands major plot developments to people. Yeah, so that's helpful.
Focus to go with the intelligence.
Yeah, and
I'm smart,
and she has
but the
drive.
focus. Yes.
She also at least
I think focus and drive are definitely strength elements
to her. But also like if the other characters had never listened to her, which you also see, right? Especially with like the one smart female character no one listens to, right?
It's the Cassandra. It's the Cassandra thing.
And so it's like you get that a lot, and I mean at least they would listen to her.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We don't all want to be stuck being Cassandra because that sucks. But okay, so let me
it sucks
if you'll give me a minute. If you'll give me a minute, I will describe to you a problem that I had when I was writing my novel. Okay. Now, the novel that I wrote has 3 point of view characters, all of whom are male. However, there are 2 very, very important female characters in the story. And I had to make sure that they were both strong. At the same time that they were both very, 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 very oppressed. And not the main characters, like not the point of view characters. So it was very challenging to work with that, right? And when you have characters who are very oppressed, it's easy for readers to construe them as weak.
Yes.
Because they're oppressed. But just because you're oppressed does not mean you're weak, right? If you're oppressed and you just sort of sit back and go, okay, I'm gonna stay in my box and and I'm not gonna make any attempts to change anything and whatever, that might be a sign of weakness. But okay, I've been put in a box and I've only been left the following tools, right? These are the tools that I'm allowed. I'm going to take these tools and I'm going to use them in untraditional ways to try to change the course of the plot and make a difference and get myself out of this box if I can. That to me shows strength. And so that was what I was trying to do with these female characters, because their situation does not allow for them to be kick-ass. Just doesn't. I mean, even if they decided that they wanted to exercise covertly, because they would kind of have to do it covertly, they're not genetically very well suited to it because of the inbred society that they've been a part of and that has been going on, for 400 years, right? So they're really not. Those are not tools that they are being handed. They would either have to say, well, okay, my body, is a thing, and I need to use it because of XYZ reason, and therefore I must try to transcend what I've been handed, which, okay. But because of the societal oppressions, physical strength isn't really going to help them a whole great deal.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so their names are Tamalera and Dilla. Tamalera is an abused wife, and her husband is always isolating her and making sure that she can't forge any kind of connection that would allow her to change things. But she loves art and she loves fashion. And so she, over the course of the book, I think she makes 2 fashion statements, one of which is instrumental in getting the protagonist to open his eyes to some things, right? And the second of which actually becomes a trend through their society. And it's something where her servant suggests that maybe she should wear gloves because there's a risk of contagion. And she's like, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. That would be actually kind of an interesting fashion, and it would be a little bit, out of the ordinary. It would be a bit daring and whatever. So she orders her servant to make her gloves, and he makes her gloves to match these amazing dresses that she's procured. And so she's got the gloves thing. Everybody, by the end of the book, everybody starts wearing gloves. And in fact, in the book that occurs 30 years later, all of the members of their cast are still wearing gloves.
Nice.
Okay, so she does not get a lot to do, but what she can do is she can say, yeah, I think gloves are a good idea. I'm going to wear these publicly. and all of a sudden it changes things. So she does, basically she uses fashion as her ability to make a statement. And so she gives her son a jacket. And that's actually really important because it's emblematic of his rebellion against his father, which is emblematic of her rebellion against his father, right? She can't make any kind of overt statements about independence, but she can give her son a jacket. That is not what people would normally wear when they're coming into their own as a politician, kind of thing, right? So she wears gloves and starts a 30-year fashion trend, which actually I love.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
And then the other thing that she does is she has this set of dresses that she wears that are patterned after the sky. Mm. And it's the ultimate sign of rebellion, even though nobody really notices it, because this is an underground society and everybody is terrified of going to the surface. And she's like, hello, artist. I would like you to make me a whole set of dramatic silk gowns patterned after the sky. And so when people see them, or when people like when one of the servants says, like, for example, this is in the gloves piece, where he's like, well, maybe I should make gloves, but they would have to match her clothes, and the other servant's like, I think you're gonna have to talk to her then, because she's got these clothes, and they're patterned after the sky, and the servants, the glove making servant is like, the sky. Now what do I do? He sees her. The dress that she's wearing is the noon gown, right? And it's this dramatic sky blue with little embroidered clouds all over it. And he's like, there is no way I could match that color. Okay, trying again, right? But like, so part of it is that just by wearing these things, she doesn't fit in anybody's box. And she always stands out no matter what room she's in, right? And part of her husband's whole problem is he feels that she gets too much attention, right? And so he's trying to shut her down, but all she has to do is wear clothes and walk into a room, and everybody has their eyes on her. So engineering her strength in these very non-traditional strength definition ways was challenging, and yet super rewarding for me as I explored her character, right? And the other thing that she has that shows strength is just an incredible amount of drive and determination. And she's always getting slapped down, and she just keeps going, right? And that's the same with Della. Della, they have to be, it's like being a writer. You have to get used to rejection, right? So these people have been placed in boxes, and people are always trying to shut them down or speak for them or negotiate for them. And they just have to keep doggedly at it to try to get what they want. And there's an incredible strength in that I think people don't discuss much.
The resilience.
Determination and resilience. Now, there are problems with the concept of resilience, right? Because you shouldn't have to have that kind of resilience, right?
Oh, yeah.
But on the other hand, it's, I think, important to go back to the whole point that I started this digression with, which is that just because somebody is oppressed does not mean they're weak.
Yeah.
And in fact, keeping going in the face of oppression requires incredible strength and drive and determination. Yeah. And then the character of Della, who is a young woman about to turn 16. And so she's basically a marriage pawn. And she takes some pretty dramatic action to make sure that she can't be used as a marriage pawn. And she puts herself at extreme risk in terms of her future, her reputation, and everything else. Spoilers, so I won't actually tell you what she does. But like when push comes to shove, her actually, I tend to give, I've said this in my hangouts before, but every one of my characters has a magical power, and they're not magical powers because this is not fantasy. But her magical power, Della's magical power, is she can always find a way out. Put her in the tightest box, she will find the thing that nobody has thought of, and she will get out. She will always think of the thing that nobody has thought of yet, because she's just what they call the outside the box thinker for a reason, right? Often it's very risky, not physically risky, but the currency of the society that I've established in the book is reputation. At least in this caste. You know, everything is caste relative in my book, but yeah, so yeah. You have to have your strengths, right? And the servants too, you know, they have their roles, and their roles are very circumscribed. But at the same time, they have to be determined, they have to be smart, they have to use the tools that they're given, and they have to find a way through. So they need, you know, they have their own secret powers and superpowers, stuff like that, that help them get through the plot and influence the plot a great deal. So
what are the words that we use? And I know it's getting late, to show that this particular individual is strong, despite
that's an
our
interesting
society looking at someone in that situation and saying, you're in that situation, you are weak by our standards. How do you point out the strength that is inherent in the individual and what is needed to be in that situation and get through that, without saying, hey, look, you are hidebound and you don't understand, this is strength? How do you portray it in such a way that they'll understand and accept?
Well, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Because no, I mean, it's really challenging. So
yeah,
in the case of, say, for example, Tamalera, her son absolutely adores her, and you often see her through her son's eyes, right? Because I'm using close point of view. But he's struggling to understand what her strengths are too. Like, he just wants her to stand up for him because he's going up against the dad as well, right? And he doesn't understand for quite a while. I mean, he comes to understand over the course of the book why she doesn't take action in the ways that he expects. But I do give him the opportunity to notice that when his mom gives him a coat, that it's really unusual, and wow, dad's going to be expecting me to conform to his precise instructions in this political debut that he's planning for me. And this coat is one way I can just not do that, and he won't be able to stop me, right? So having other people recognize the importance of particular gestures by somebody like that is really important. I mean, because if I were in her head,
you might not.
You know, it's tricky,
it
right? It's very tricky.
Yeah, a person doesn't always recognize their own strengths.
Right, and I'm not sure she would think about it in those terms, in fact. So, yeah. And I think I like, Morgan, what you said. Oh gosh, there's a couple things that I missed in the chat bar. So crying is seen as weakness. Yeah, that's interesting, and it's definitely true. Crying, I think, is a sort of an emotional, a steam valve, right? And I think that what we expect to see is crying. There are two different kinds of emotional steam valves, and I think crying is one, and I think rage is another. And I think that culturally we're conditioned to see rage as strong and crying as weak, but they both serve roughly the same purpose. But that's interesting.
Yeah, and I sort of like
and I think, in fact, there's a lot of strength involved in just taking all of your upset and keeping it on yourself in order to protect other people.
Mhm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that there's a lot of ways to subvert the expectation that rage equals strength, right? Because it's really not.
No.
The other thing, being weak in some way doesn't devalue your humanity. No, in fact, there should be an expectation that everybody should be allowed to be weak in some way, because we all are, right? Yeah, we all work on our stuff, but
Yeah.
it doesn't make us less human. It makes us more human.
Yeah.
In a sense. And also, I think also that there's an association of weakness with femininity that needs to be just kind of broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Men rage, women cry. Crying is weakness.
Mhm.
And females
And therefore
who cry
it's
are
seen
just
as effeminate.
really bad.
It's crying is seen as effeminate, and it's more like like, okay, when you're a kid, you cry all the time for like virtually no reason, and it's like ridiculous. You know, it's like any crying toddler going through the
Well, I
grocery
mean-
store because they didn't get the thing they wanted or whatever, right?
No, here's
It's like-
the thing though. It's a communication device for children. Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason why babies cry is because they can reasonably hold the expectation that will bring them help.
Yeah.
When babies are alone, and when we are alone, we're less likely to cry. When we know that there's no help coming.
Hmm.
And we know that if we cry, it will only bring the lions. We're not likely to cry.
Yeah.
Right? It's a communications instinct, in fact.
Mhm.
And babies have it built into them because it's the only thing that they can do to make sure that they are given attention by the parent when things are tough.
As language skills develop and they gain vocabulary, they have more tools, and you can say, why are you crying? And they'll have words to explain it.
Yeah.
Right.
As
And crying
adults-
can also become a whiny sort of like deliberately used tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
also,
But
if you
you
do
can't
not
forget
develop,
that fundamental core purpose for it.
right, you know, if you find yourself crying, particularly crying in frustration, either you do not have the words to say what's wrong or how
Right.
awful this really is, the words do not exist, or you don't have them, or even you're using the words that this person really should understand and they're not. And the only way that you have to show that things are really awful, what's you know, is to cry because the words aren't there or they're not being understood.
Right. And
So
you know,
it's still
you see a lot of
communication.
people, you see a lot of
But I
people
think-
who get frustrated and also go into a rage, as well
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I think that some people tend more to go into a rage when they're frustrated, and some people tend more to cry when they're frustrated, and it's
But I think that also, I mean, people don't see crying as, and it can be and is a very healthy response to things.
yeah,
And that is like negated, and you're supposed to just bury your feelings
yeah,
all the time.
and
that
destroy
if
your
you
health.
cry, you're weak. And whereas to sort of be in touch with yourself emotionally is not really a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But people, if you're having an emotional reaction, there's something wrong with you, and you're dumb and you're weak and
Mm-hmm.
you're childish or whatever. And I mean, sometimes, yeah, that's true, but it is not always true. And people seem to have it's like you have a hard time telling whether it is just being childish or whether you're having a healthy emotional response. And that's something like I think we all struggle with because we're not necessarily educated in our emotions, despite all those Nick Jr. programs trying to tell you to use your words as a toddler. You know,
Yeah.
so it's you know, so you're left with these insane emotional responses and these insane responses to your emotions that aren't, you know, that is not necessarily what's happening or what should be happening, or, you know, like it's things, you know, that people say are bad aren't bad, you know, so it's like it's all
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's
so.
we've gone for an hour, and
Yeah.
I can tell this is a much bigger topic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
I wrote
Tone
down
policing.
pain as a possible topic for the future.
Oh.
Because that's definitely something. Let's talk after we end the broadcast, and a little bit about how we want to sort of tease out some of the aspects that we may not have covered of this topic, and possibly return to it on another day. I don't think it makes sense to have a hangout next week.
Probably not. Isn't that like
Between Christmas and New Year's is going to be really, really a busy time for a lot of people. So so let's
sorry.
let's resume on January the 4th. Does that sound fair?
Okay. 2 days after my birthday.
yes, it is.
And let's see. On January the 11th, I'm going to have, I believe it's Laura Ann Gilman who's going to come and talk about
Laura Ann's coming back. Awesome. Awesome.
the cold eye. And so that should be really awesome. And I will reconfirm the details of that as we get closer. And for now, I'm going to stop the broadcast. So thanks for being here.